going on, everyone? I figured since it's February now, let's talk about a movie that I love called February, aka The Blackcoat's Daughter, written and directed by Oz Perkins, the son of horror legend Anthony Perkins, Psycho Norman Bates. Um, this one came out in 2017 officially, but it's got a 2015 IMDb release. But I think it was officially released in 2017. I think this movie is streaming on Netflix, or at least it was when I saw it. And so if you're curious to check it out after this review, look at Netflix. Maybe it's still there. If not, I recommend buying it for sure. So, this is a movie I've seen 4 times now, and I love it just as much, if not more, each time. So, uh, plot synopsis describing the movie would be kind of hard without spoiling shit, so I'm going to read what's on the back here and stop at a certain point because it does kind of spoil some shit that I don't think you should know going in. I would recommend going in blind as possible. So, beautiful and haunted Joan, played by Emma Roberts, makes a bloody and determined pilgrimage across a frozen landscape toward a prestigious all-girls prep school where Rose and Kat find themselves stranded after their parents mysteriously failed to retrieve them for winter break. As Joan gets closer, Rose watches in horror while Kat suffers terrifying visions and ... I'll leave it at that. The movie opens up with Kat having a terrifying vision, a premonition, so that's not much of a spoiler. But the rest of that sentence kind of spoils some stuff, so we'll just leave it there. So let's get into my only nitpick complaint about the movie, is that this movie is a slow burn, and that just seems to be this director's style, because if you've seen his other movie that came out around the same time called I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, that's on Netflix right now. I just saw that a few weeks ago. That one's a slow burn. That's like 80 minutes, but it feels like 2 hours, like where every shot just goes on an extra minute than it needs to. That's a slow movie. This one's a slow burn, but it's not that slow. So if you saw that movie and then you saw that he was directing this, and because you didn't like how slow that movie was, you're like, worried about this one being just as slow. I don't think it's as slow as the I know I am the long ass title. I am the pretty thing that lives in the house. That movie is 10 times slower. Like, that one's too slow for me. This one, I admit it is slow, especially like the first 30, 40 minutes, but then you get this cool twist and it's just very intriguing, and it just gets better and better as the movie goes on. So if you can just get past the first act and how slow it might feel, trust me, it gets better. So it is a little bit slow, and there's only one scene where I feel like it was longer than it needed to be, and it's when this mom is in the car talking about some past experience, and she just kind of gives this long-winded story with extra details that she doesn't need to say. Like, she starts speaking like an author, where they get very descriptive, and it's like, just make the story short. You could have told that story in 2 sentences, but you spoke for like 5 minutes. So that's the only scene that could have been truncated, but that's it. So, positives. This movie just has a great sense of dread throughout. Like, this ominous feel, like something is coming. Just there's something off about this main girl, Kat, and the performances from all 3 of the main actresses, and even the actor, everyone basically. But there's another actor who's famous. I forget his name. But he was good. Like, all the performances are terrific. Lucy Boynton, she was in the I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. So yeah, there's just a great sense of dread throughout, and the score is very unsettling. And the score is done by Osgood Perkins' brother. I think his name is Elvis. And I think the winter setting is perfect for this kind of movie. It just goes with the overall feel and mood of the film. It's a cold, scary, depressing film, and it's very, very atmospheric. I love the way it's shot, the cinematography, the use of shadows, and just how, the color palette, just how the movie just looks dark and cold and miserable. Like, they're just stuck here at this prep school in this atmospheric winter setting, and there's lots of good eerie shots. It's very haunting. There's one shot of, Kat on her bed that I won't spoil what happens, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. Like, that's a great shot. The third act gets brutal and bloody, very violent, not like gory or anything, but it's pretty violent. Lots of carnage there. And so then I love how the story's told as well. I don't want to say too much here either, but the story is like told from three different people's perspectives. It'll say like, Joan, and then it'll cut to the character Kat. It'll say Kat, and then we start kind of following her story a bit, and then it'll go back and show this person's story, what they saw and heard. Then there's a twist in the middle that I did not see coming. So I like a movie that has a good twist, especially when it's like early on, and it just makes the rest of the movie more intriguing because of it. And so, yeah, I don't want to go on too long because I feel like the longer I talk, the more I'll slip and spoil too much. So, final thoughts. This is a slow burn, so just know that going in. Maybe that'll help your experience. But it's only like 90 minutes at best, so it's not like a long movie or anything. But it just builds and builds this ominous sense of something terrifying is approaching. It's creepy. It's violent. It's haunting. And it's also very just heartbreaking. So when it comes to the Blackcoat's Daughter, I love this movie. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars. So the movie opens up with Kat, and she's marking her calendar. She sees that her mom and dad are approaching, or they're coming in 2 days, but she has this vision, this premonition, this terrifying dream that she's being lured outside by who she says is her dad, but we never see this guy's face. He's just wearing a black coat, the Blackcoat's daughter. He's taking her outside, and we see a crashed car with like 2 dead bodies in it. Like one person's head's through the windshield, and that's her parents. And then she wakes up, and that's just weighing on her throughout the rest of the movie. She doesn't really want to believe it at first, but she kind of believes that it's really going to happen, so that's why she just looks so bummed out and depressed throughout the whole movie, really. And so then she has this meeting with Father Brian, and I thought one of her lines was interesting, like it was kind of like a double meaning, where she says, I wish you could see my performance. He's talking about how he's leaving, and, I wish I could see your piano recital, and she's like, oh, I wish you could see my performance, but is she really talking about her, like, ritual, her bloodbath that she's gonna do at the end? Like, I wish you could be here and see what I'm gonna do for the devil, like that. That's kind of how I read it this time. And so, yeah, and she's looking at the corner of the room, smiling at nothing. So I guess we can assume the devil was in the corner and she was just smiling at him. So then we get this shot of Kat out on the road, looking down the road, just praying that her vision wasn't true. And just one little tear's going down her face because she's starting to really suspect, like, maybe they are dead, they're not coming. And so, and this is the same road that she's on at the end of the movie, Emma Roberts, when she's on that road. That's the same exact road. She's looking down the same direction, except she's not looking for her parents that time. I think she's looking for the devil. Like, is he coming? But no. So then she starts crying. She's crying here, but not like crying, just like a little tear going down her face. She doesn't have a real good cry until the end of the movie. And so then, as she's doing her recital, she looks over, she sees that there's 2 empty seats, again confirming her suspicion, like, they're dead, so they're not coming. And then we get this scene where Rose is gossiping about how the 2 sisters at this school, they're devil worshippers, and how their hair is fake. And meanwhile, in the corner, we find out later on the devil was actually in that room, and it just made me wonder: was she really saying that, or was that just what Kat was hearing her say? Because when we see that scene again later on, they have the devil in the corner, and when she's talking, it sounds demonic. When Rose is speaking, it sounds like demonic, like the devil's saying it with her, like he was telling her what to say to feed the idea to Kat to go to the basement to start worshiping the devil. Because what she's saying, like her little rumor, her gossip about how those 2 older sisters that work at the school, they were in the basement worshiping the devil, it's like foreshadowing what she does later on. She does the same exact thing. So did she do that because of her story? Like, she fed the idea to her to go later on to the basement to start worshiping the devil? Was she actually saying that, or was that the devil making her say that? Was she just hearing it? I don't know. That's my one question here. So then we cut to, oh, when she sees her picture, when Rose gets that picture taken, she has it printed out. Kat walks up to it, and we see this shot like 2, 3 times in the movie. She brushes her thumb under her chin, like across her throat, like she's saying, like, I'm gonna decapitate you later. So that's good foreshadowing, shadowing right there. And then we meet Joan, played by Emma Roberts, a beautiful, beautiful lady, and she's at the bus stop, and they establish right away that this is an escaped, like, mental patient. She's got the bracelet she rips off. They even cut to like a flashback of her breaking out. So we know that she's a loony, but we don't know who exactly she is. And we see Joan at the bus stop making a phone call, but we don't know who she's calling, but I can only assume that she's trying to call the school. No one picks up because that school's closed now because of the massacre that happened. But also, I have to wonder, is she trying to call to see if it's still open, or is she calling the school trying to reconnect with the devil? Because that's how he communicated with her before. So then Joan, she hitches a ride with this friendly, or just the one guy's friendly. The wife seems a bit cold, and you don't understand why she's acting the way she is at first. But then you find out the twist. But she gets in the car with this older couple, and we see flowers in the back seat. We don't know what they're for. If they're, happy flowers given to someone for a happy occasion, or sad flowers, we don't know yet. But then we see the bumper sticker on the back of the car that says Brantford, the name of the school. So then you're like, oh, so they're going to the school, and these are probably Rose's parents, and they're going there to pick her up. That's what, I thought on first watch. Then we get one of the first creepy shots of the movie where Rose catches Kat in the basement bowing down to the furnace like 3 times, and just the way her body moves, it just seemed unnatural. It felt like almost it was animated the first time I watched it. It looked weird, just off. But yeah, she's just like bowing down like 3 times. It's very creepy and unsettling. And I heard that the school logo that's on their shirt in Latin, it apparently translates to like she bows or something, something about bowing. So that's like, I guess, foreshadowing the bowing scene that I just talked about. And also that logo has a picture of just a head, foreshadowing all the severed heads we get in the finale. So then we get the hotel scene, and we see a bullet hole on her shoulder, and that's explained later on. Uh, Also, they're talking about God, and the guy who picked her up believes in God, and he sees God in coincidences, and sees God in her, and that she reminds him of someone, and we find out that she is the cat. So that's who she reminds him of. But I think he said, like, you remind me of my daughter. I don't know. I don't think he said that, but the reason why she looks so familiar to him is because 9 years ago he probably saw her when she was being arrested, and she's the woman that killed his daughter Rose. But yeah, she's asked if she believes in God, and she says no, which is interesting because she believes in the devil. Clearly, she was possessed. She was bowing down to him. She worshipped him. She saw him. Uh, and so to believe in the devil, I think you have to believe in God by default, right? Like, how can you believe there's a devil but not believe that there's a God? But some people might say that this is a movie that you can interpret like, oh, maybe she was just crazy the whole time. But I think this movie makes it clear that what you see is really happening. This woman is possessed, and I think even Osgood Perkins confirms it. Like, she is possessed. So then Kat, she's told by the headmaster that works there, Gordon, like, you can't live here, and he's telling Rose to look after her until her parents get there, but she knows her parents aren't coming. And so when this lady Rose betrays her and is not following instruction, and she's not taking care of her, she just feels more alone. Like, my parents are dead. I know they're not coming. I can't stay here for the rest of my life. Like, Gordon's not going to look after me. This chick doesn't even give a shit about me. And then when later on she's like, I promise I'll take care of you till Friday. And she's like, you had your chance. Like, that's a chilling line. Like, you had your chance. It's over. I'm taking your head. Then we get another creepy shot with Kat when she's on her bed and her body starts to like contort. and she like bends in half. Her legs go like behind her head on her bed. She's like, I guess, this is after that scene with the bowing down. So that was her like committing her, giving her soul to the devil. And now this is like the side effect. He's taking over her body. And after this is when she's like fully possessed now. So then we get to the scene at the diner with Joan, and this is when the big reveal happens. This is like towards the middle of the movie, and he hands her a picture like, my daughter died. She would have been about your age right now. He hands her that photo, that class photo, that picture that was taken earlier, and it's Rose. So this is the oh shit moment in the movie where like this movie's not being told in order, like it's not all happening at one time. It's jumping to the future, jumping back and forth between like different timelines, and we find out that Rose has been dead in this timeline with Joan, and Joan is Kat's character. And what I found so interesting is that she laughs about it when she gets that photo. She's shocked and she runs to the kitchen, and then she just starts laughing. She's trying to contain herself. It's like she's laughing because she's like, oh my God, this is a sign. He saw God in coincidences. I think she sees the devil in coincidences. And she's like, this is too much of a coincidence. This is the devil telling me, like he's delivering me more victims. He wants me to get their heads now. And he's probably waiting for me at that school. So she laughs about it. She's happy. She's not sad and feeling guilty about what she did to their daughter. She is joyful in that moment, like, yes, there's a chance I can get reconnected with the devil. So then she grabs the knife and goes back in the car with them. And later on, when they're driving towards the school, she asks them to pull over. And then she just starts going to town on them. She's stabbing. She slits the guy's throat. She starts stabbing the shit out of the lady and takes both of their heads and puts them in a suitcase. It is brutal. So then we get the scene where she gets off the phone. We don't hear the conversation until they cut back to it later on, I don't think. But she's like, Rose is saying, like, what? Who were you talking to? She's like, Father Gordon. He said I can live with him. But I don't think she really thought she was talking to Father Gordon. I think she was just lying to Rose at that point. But she was really talking to the devil, and the devil was saying, like, you can live with me. I can take care of you. You won't feel so alone. Now that your parents are dead, you can have me instead, and I can fill that loss. So, yeah. But then later on, when we hear that conversation, we actually hear, like, the static. We hear the devil's voice saying, like, they're not coming, and then, you can live with me. And then he says, kill all the cunts. And that's why in the dinner scene, after she pukes, after saying grace, she pukes. She calls the one sister a cunt. She's like, get your hands off me, cunt. And when she says that word, you actually hear her voice turn slightly demonic. So then the sisters, they get the phone call that her parents are dead, but they're not going to tell her right away. They tell Kat or Rose to go outside and start shoveling the snow. And while she's outside shoveling, this is when the sisters get killed, and that's revealed a little bit later. And meanwhile, after she's done shoveling, Rose, she takes a pregnancy test. We got this whole subplot going on between her and her boyfriend. And it's really just here to explain why she's still there at the school. Like, if she wasn't scared that she might be pregnant, she would have just left when everyone else left. But she stuck around for an extra couple days to see if she really was pregnant, to talk to her boyfriend about it, to maybe go schedule an abortion. I think they were talking about that too in the car. And he's like, let me drive you to the abortion clinic, which I thought was interesting. Like, usually in these movies, the guy is always like, I'll be damned if you kill my baby, or they're the opposite, where they're forcing the abortion. But he was like on her side the whole way through, like, whatever you want to do, I'll drive you. So that was interesting. That's never usually the case. It's always the opposites, like extremes. But she finds out she's not pregnant, so she finally has this moment where she's happy, but then it gets chopped away by Kat. Her happiness gets cut short. She just gets stabbed a bunch in her stomach, so even if she was pregnant, that baby would have been stabbed right then and there. And she just falls to the ground, bleeds out. She gets stabbed more times, and then gets her head chopped off. And we get this cool shot of two blood trails going through the snow. It's from the two severed heads that she was carrying, dripping, making like this blood path. It was a great shot. Then we get another great shot where she's in front of the furnace with the three severed heads, And then the cop gets there and she says, "Hail Satan!" And then she gets shot in the shoulder, explaining the gunshot wound on Joan. And so then, yeah, I already talked about it. Joan, she kills the parents. She takes their severed heads to that furnace, but the furnace isn't hot and fiery, and it's cold. She touches it, and it's so cold that she like jerks back her hand, and she puts the heads down there, but there's no response. And they cut to an exorcism scene, and I like that the exorcism scene wasn't like too long and just cliche. They didn't like make her contort on the bed and her head twist around and say your mom sucks cocks in hell. Like they didn't make it too exorcist like. She just kind of floated a little bit and then it was over. They got it over with. They made their point, and he says, I banish you and you can never come back. So that's why she can't get this devil to respond to her now, even though she's giving these heads to the furnace and trying to reconnect with the devil. He is not allowed to come back to her because he's been banished from her body forever, never to return. And so when she realizes that she's alone, she can't get the devil to possess her again, she can't reconnect with him, she just goes outside looking down the same road that she was looking down 9 years ago, looking for her parents, crying that, knowing that they were dead. Now she's crying, knowing that the devil is not going to be there for her, and now she's just officially lost and all alone, and she can't fill that loss with the devil again. And now she has to just acknowledge the fact that her parents are dead and she's alone, and she just has to move on and just deal with the grief. And she finally has that moment to cry. Like, it was just a little tear before when she was Kat 9 years ago, but now she can finally just cry about it, cry about her dead parents, and just let it all out and just deal with the loss and the grief, and not try to just replace it with demonic spirits. And at the very last second, she's looking off down the road, and it seems like maybe she's seeing something. Maybe. Like, it's kind of up for interpretation. Like, did she reconnect with the devil? Did she see something? Was she starting to hear him approach her? Like, that very last second, like, she starts to calm down. She stops crying. She just looks down the road. Like, maybe she saw something. But I doubt it. And so those are my thoughts on The Blackcoat's Daughter. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get upset about it.